Artem Lobov, aka the GOAT, will be returning to MMA action against Tukhugov Saturday, October 3rd at the PFL show in Dubai, and that's at a 165-pound catch weight. This is a fight that was actually supposed to happen in the UFC in October of 2018 at UFC Moncton, but it ended up not taking place because Tukhugov was involved in that post-fight brawl between Khabib and Conor McGregor. So Zubaira was pulled off that card and the fight did not take place. But the fight is now happening in the PFL, and Artem Lobov says 7 years later, but this fight was inevitable. Artem ended up fighting Michael Johnson instead of Zubaira Tukhugov at that Moncton card, and he lost the decision in that one. Then he would transition into bare knuckle boxing, and in BKFC, he picked up a couple wins over Jason Knight and Paulie Malignaggi. But then he lost to Jason Knight and then took another bare knuckle boxing bout and lost that, and he hasn't competed in over 4 years now. Zubaira Tukhugov would go on to have a little bit of everything: a split decision draw against Lerone Murphy, a split decision loss to Hakeem Dawodu. Then he also beat Kevin Aguilar via first round KO. His last fight was in the UFC against Elvin Brenner. He lost a split decision. He also didn't make weight. That was his last fight in the UFC 2.5 years ago. It's crazy that the PFL landed the GOAT of MMA, Artem Lobov, probably paying him $10 million a fight. The biggest rivalry, the rivalry that started Conor versus Khabib, but that was then. And now Artem and Conor have beef in a rivalry because Artem had a lawsuit against Conor McGregor, which is still going on. It's about profits from proper number 12 Irish whiskey. New court date is October, which is actually the same month that Lobov will be fighting Zubaira Tukhugov. Artem seeking 5% share of the brand's estimated $600 million sale. He claims he played a key role in its creation. The Dublin High Court recently allowed Artem to amend the claim after he discovered new supporting documentation on an old phone. McGregor won a separate defamation lawsuit against Lobov. The financial dispute, however, remains unresolved and could potentially cost McGregor over $20 million if Lobov's case succeeds. The UFC returns to Vancouver, British Columbia on October 18th. The rumor is it's going to be headlined by Umar Nurmagomedov versus Mario Batista on the bantamweight division, 5-5-minute rounds. Number 2 and 8 at bantamweight. Chance for Mario Batista to catapult himself into title contention if he can get the victory. Also, another 2 versus 8 matchup on the card is Manon Fiorot versus Jasmine Jasudavicius. Jasmine will have home cage advantage there. Manon was on a 12-fight win streak until she finally lost her last fight to Valentina Shevchenko, that title fight. Jasmine Jasudavicius is riding high right now. 5 wins in a row. 3 of those were via choke. 2 Darces. She'll try and do that to Manon, but it may be tough with her physicality and takedown D. So it'll be an interesting fight, but Manon Fiorot is the favorite in that one. A couple other fights at 185 on that card. Danny Barlow versus Jordan Santos and Bakoyev versus Usuri. Jimmy Crute is fresh off a submission victory in the first round over Marcin Prachnio, and he has his next fight scheduled. Didn't say against who, but he said the date is September 27th in Perth. That's the card which is headlined by Alberg versus Reyes at 185. Number 3 and 8 at 185. That's also the win streaks for these guys. 3-fight win streak for Reyes, 8-fight win streak for Alberg. Reyes has had quite a resurgence in his career. Started his career with 11 wins, then he lost 4. Now he's trying to win 4. If he beats Alberg, he knocked out Jacoby Smith and Krylov with KOs. He's looking to KO Alberg, and if he does, he'd be close to title contention, which is kind of crazy. We'll see if he can do that September 27th in Perth. Another fight on that card is Duho Choi versus Daniel Santos, and also Navajo Sterling versus Hidalgo Bellato. Sterling is a slick striker out of New Zealand. Bellato's coming off that controversial no contest with Paul Craig, where people accused Bellato of trying to fake his way to a DQ win. Ended up being a no contest. Angela Hill fights Yasmin Lucindo Saturday, and she thinks with a win, she's right up there for a title shot. I don't know where these fighters get these ideas from, but like, even if she beats Lucindo, she's number 8 in the strawweight division, and Angela Hill's on a 1-fight win streak. She's 1-1 in her last 2, so I don't know where she's getting that title shot idea from, but she fights Lucindo Saturday at the UFC Apex. Saturday's card is headlined by Delidze versus Hernandez. That's number 9 and 10 in the middleweight division. Delidze is coming off a win over Vettori, while Hernandez is coming off a win over Brendan Allen. Hernandez is a slight favorite in that one. It's tough to go 5 rounds with Hernandez. Pushes a pretty crazy pace. Delidze, however, did go the full 25 against Vettori in his last fight, and he didn't seem to be too tired, but Hernandez does push a pretty crazy wrestling pace, so we'll see how his cardio holds up against Hernandez, who's a slight favorite. The middleweight division will be showcased the following week as well in the main event of UFC 319, DDP versus Chimaev. RDR wants the winner. He thinks him fighting DDP would be better because DDP is more active. Hamzat started his UFC career very active, 3 fights in 3 months, and then after that he had 5 fights in 3 years.
One that you lean towards in terms like which one would you prefer?
Well, Hamzat is, of course, I think if Hamzat wins this one, especially if he wins decisively, he'll be like a huge name, right? And that might come with him taking a lot of time off after. So it might be better if Dricus wins, and then we can fight in 4 to 6 months. That would be best, I think. Yeah.
I'm sure. Like the reality is, like Hamzat could win, but then be out for a year, and I know you don't want to wait that long.
Nah, exactly. So hopefully, it would be nice if Dricus wins, and we can line it up. Yeah.
Aiden Ross was recently saying that Hamzat Chimaev's team asked for $700,000 for Hamzat to appear on his live stream. Ross wanted them on his live stream, and they said $700,000, a figure that caught Ross off guard, and he laughed it off. The high asking price sparked some speculation among fans, thinking that maybe it's not a serious offer, but rather a way to politely decline the appearance. Hamzat wasn't so polite in his response. He was saying that, who is this bullshit gay, was his response to what Aiden Ross said about him. Aiden gave Playboy Cardi millions in cash, and Cardi ran off without doing the stream, is what one comment is, and another person thinks that $700,000 is ridiculous, not gonna lie. BKFC Sturgis, record-breaking attendance, 22.5 thousand fans there. PFL World Tournament continues Friday, August 15th. 3 finals on that card. Davis versus Rabadanov at 155. Then you got Bishop and Carmouche, as well as Alves versus Wetzel in the bantamweight division. Alex Pereira training his ground game for his fight with Magomed Ankalaev October 4th at UFC 320 in Vegas, but it was the striking that won Ankalaev that fight pretty much. He outlanded Pereira in 4 out of the 5 rounds, every round except round 1, so he won a decision there. Co-main event, Marab versus Sandhagen, and also another light heavyweight contest on that card is Prohajka versus Roundtree Jr. Another fight added to that UFC 320 October 4th card is Magomedov versus Pyfer, Abus Magomedov versus Joe Pyfer in the middleweight division. Magomedov is 14, so Pyfer's looking to break into the rankings if he can get the victory. Pyfer's coming off 2 wins in a row over Marc-Andre Barriault and Kelvin Gastelum most recently, and the most recent win from Magomedov was a victory over Michel Pereira. Prior to that, he beat Warley Alves and Bruno Ferreira. This should be a competitive fight. It'll probably take place mostly on the feet. It may come down to just who lands with the harder shot because it's going to be close. The power edge probably goes to Pyfer, but Magomedov can crack too, so it's going to be a competitive 15 minutes of action at 185. John Jones had a good time in Russia. It was a good time together. Thank you so much for looking after me and keeping Abraham and I safe. You're a great friend. Excited to get to know you better over the years.